My name is Keanu Taylor. I'm the Global Head of Research at the Martech Weekly. We are a research company focused purely on Martech. And today I'm here to talk about AI agents, which is very, very topical, of course. Everything that we've seen this morning, there's a lot of focus on it. And I'm excited to be back in Vegas. As an Australian, I don't get many opportunities to come to Vegas. In fact, I've only ever been one time before, and I had a lot of fun, but I didn't do very well on the tables. I had a budget that I thought was appropriate, and I told my partner that budget, so I didn't go over it. And then on day one, it was all gone. So I was sitting at the bar on my own. And I think it's appropriate that we're talking about AI agents in Vegas, because there's a lot of companies, as we saw this morning, that are betting big on AI agents. They're making that bet and giving it a go. And then you've got other companies who don't really want to get anywhere near the table, or they're unsure about the potential rewards, they're unsure about the risks. So again, I think we're in the right place to be talking about AI agents. Just a little bit more about the Martech Weekly before I launch into everything about AI agents. So for those that don't know us, we're a Martech research company. We focus on Martech for enterprise consumer brands. So we don't touch B2B, we don't touch SMB. We're very focused on how Martech works in big companies. We do that across our research. We give advisory to brands. We run our own events. We have our newsletter and our podcast as well. And we've got over 6,000 companies that rely on us for our insight, big enterprise companies, and a lot of the same issues, big legacy data problems, legacy platform problems, but yeah, all on the consumer side. So enough grandstanding and enough logos. I've got a question for you all, and I want to see a show of hands. Who is tired of AI agent hype? Who is struggling to make sense of it? And who does not understand what is true change and what is product marketing? Who's having that? I've got one very keen chap in the middle here. Okay, so there's a few of us. I think that's completely normal. That feeling of not being quite sure what is real, what is actually driving value. Even sometimes you go to conferences and you see someone talk about AI agents and you see top line, success, and you think, how did they get there? I know there were problems. What were the challenges? So I'll tell you who else is tired of AI agent hype. This guy. So I spoke to the head of Martech at a health insurance company, and so I interviewed him as part of the research we're doing into AI agents. And he said, if you ask our CEO, he'll tell you we've got an AI agent strategy. But the truth is, they don't really. They had a few proof of concepts. Some of them were doing okay, some were doing very poorly, but there's no strategy underneath the hood. But his CEO is out there telling everyone, we've got a strategy, we're doing fantastic, it's all sunshine and lollipops. So this hype, it has a real impact on people in their organizations. Top-down pressure, bottom-up pressure, people saying we should be adopting this without fully understanding what this is. And guess what? It's only going to get worse. So if you believe the hype cycle, the Gartner hype cycle, when it comes to digital marketing, we are halfway up the hype cycle. So there's still plenty more to come. But I guess despite all the hype and all the noise and the struggle finding signal through all this, I'm not against AI agents. In fact, I think there's a lot of value to be had there, and this is why we've actually been doing research into this. But I guess just last point on the hype, there's this spectrum, right? There's people at one end who are absolute believers. think of Sam Altman, AGI, AI agents, it's going to take over. Yeah, your job is not safe. These are the true believers. And then at the other end, you've got the folks, not sure if you guys know about Gary Marcus, these people who think that AI is terrible, it doesn't work, AI agents are never going to be a serious thing in enterprises. So they're the non-believers. But both of these views are really reductive. They're belief-based, they're unproductive, and the discourse is not useful to anyone in brands. So if you work at a big consumer brand, listening to either of these people is not helpful. So what we want more of is up the top. We want serious Martech leaders who have nuanced, evidence-based discussions that are productive. And evidence-based is the key word there. So as part of trying to contribute a bit more evidence to this topic, we've partnered up with Treasure Data, and we're in the process now of interviewing a bunch of different enterprise consumer brands to find out what's working, of course, but it's not about cherry-picking success cases. So we want to know equally what is not working with AI agents. What are you struggling with? And of course, the last one, what do we need to know? Or what do other people in my shoes, what do my peers need to know? So we've been doing these interviews for a couple months now, and what I'm going to do is I'll walk through some of the learnings, and I'm going to illustrate each with a quote. So I spoke with the Chief Growth Officer at a travel ancillaries company. So they do everything except the holiday. So airport parking, transfers, insurance, but not actual hotel bookings or anything like that. So everything around it. And their feedback was, or their comment was, that we didn't just flick a switch on. There's a lot of product marketing out there that says you can sort of turn AI agents on and you're instantly getting value out of them. Not how it works at all. So this company, it took longer than they thought. It was messier than they thought. And I think this quote really speaks to the experience that a lot of brands are having here. It's just not as simple as it says on the tin a lot of the time. So in their mind, they sort of thought it was going to be Route 50, which, if I've done my research correctly, that is somewhere around here or goes through the middle of the US. I'm not seeing any nodding heads, so I may be way off with that. But what they got was Lombard Street in San Francisco, which, again, I also do not understand how people go up and down this street. But that's a conversation for another day. So let me tell you a little bit more about this company and the use case and what they were trying to achieve. So travel ancillaries, all the sort of products around a holiday, they sell them. And their objective at the end of 2024, they set a goal for 2025, which was they want to make one customer-facing AI agent every single week for the whole year. So 52 total. How many do you think they made? Do you reckon they got to 52? You reckon they got there? Oh, they got one. Okay. Don't vote for 52. Obviously, they got nowhere near 52. One is the correct answer, so well done. Yeah, so they had a grand goal. It was sort of a top-down goal. The CEO was saying, we're an AI company now, even though they're not really. So they said, we'll do 52. They scrapped that pretty quickly. So they ran down a lot of dead ends. They found a lot of use cases where AI agents just couldn't have that impact. They weren't reliable enough, or their own processes weren't ready. So instead, they decided to switch focus and say, okay, this year we are going to make one single AI, customer-facing AI agent use case. We're going to productionize it, and it will be out there in the world. So the use case they focused on was an AI agent which helps people change the registration on their car booking. So if they have a booking to park their car at the airport before they take off for a holiday and when they get back, all they would do is change the registration. And that sounds super simple, but there's actually a bit of complexity behind the scenes. So number one, this company doesn't own the actual parking. So what they do usually, someone will call up, the company will say, yep, great, I've got the rego, I've got the new registration plate, I'm going to go and call the third party and then get them to update the registration. So basically there's this interface with a bunch of different third parties all across Europe, so airports in different languages and different places in Europe. So that was the first complexity. And then there was other complexity around whether it was a change of registration plate or a change of the actual vehicle. So the car parking, the parks needed to know that for the purpose of security. Is this the right vehicle coming in? And some other complexity, but those were the key parts. Basically, the process was not that simple, but it was quite repetitive. So what they did, basically, they set up an AI agent. The idea was to reduce calls going to the call center, because previously it was managed by people. And to be fair, they saw really good outcomes. So the way I've structured this, is outcomes first and then learnings. Because the outcomes always look great, and then you see the learnings and the pain that went into it, and you think twice. So the outcomes were, it was an unqualified success at the end of the day. So this AI agent, which was based on the website, sort of almost like ChatGPT, it was open, natural language. You could say, I need to change my registration plate, and it would get it done for you. It would interface with the third parties, and hey presto. So it manages over 1,000 queries a day that don't have to go to the call center. The quality is still there. So it reduced the time taken to less than 30 seconds to actually do that. So previously, someone would call up, they'd wait on hold maybe, they'd finally get someone, that person would put them on hold whilst they call the third party, and then they would confirm. Now, it was all done in less than 30 seconds with a 99% customer satisfaction rate. And then the cost. So they reduced their cost to 9 cents per interaction. So the cost to serve reduced massively. But, this all looks amazing, yes, but it took them a long time to get to a very basic use case. So the company, they had to go through a lot of different iterations. They had to put a lot of infrastructure in place before they could even get to that one use case. So some of the things that they learned along the way, number one, choose your use case wisely. And this is something we've heard from every company that we've interviewed. High volume, medium complexity, and low risk is the absolute sweet spot. So high volume so that you can actually make a difference, right? Medium complexity, because if it's low complexity, then you don't need an AI agent. You probably just need some sort of form, or you need some sort of standard workflow. And then low risk, because things can go wrong, and you don't want it to be scaled up by an AI agent. So that was the first learning. The second learning was around preparing the ground. So they use this term, preparing the ground, but basically what they meant was there was a lot of things that they needed to do first before they could even start rolling out the first use case. So for them, it was authentication cleanup. So their authentication within their business and who could access what needed a cleanup. They realized they can't scale up until they actually do that piece of work. So that was number one. Number two, they realized they needed some form of staging environment. So these guys went more along the build rather than buy route. So they needed staging and rollout infrastructure. And then number three was really important. So cost and performance monitoring. So they were testing this workflow across different LLMs. So they would see, how does OpenAI's LLM do? What's the accuracy rate? What's the time that it takes versus, Anthropic's? And they were looking at the costs of that as well. So they realized very quickly they couldn't do any of this and actually know how it was going unless they had these things in place. So preparing the ground was another learning. And the third one was building an interaction catalog. So how many people sort of know what an interaction catalog is in this room? Okay. So I'm assuming none of your businesses have it. But this company had a bit of an interaction catalog. So this idea of basically any interaction your company can have with a customer, documented, rules around it, documented in a central place. And a lot of telecommunications companies do this. So, it's basically, it helps arbitrate what the next best customer action is. But they realized, they are a holiday ancillaries company, and they had a very basic interaction catalog. But they very quickly realized that the AI agent needed this context. It needed to know what it could do or what other real, human agents would do in similar situations. So they, before they even started doing the technical side, they had to build out their interaction catalog and have a big long list of things and ways that we can actually interact with customers and what are acceptable responses as well. And again, this is not to try and dictate a journey. So you're not saying if they say this, say that. You're just saying these are the types of things that we offer to customers. These are the types of responses we will have. But at the end of the day, as an AI agent, you need to be flexible to work out what is the right one to serve next. Okay, so that was the first learning, or the first use case. The next one was from a different health insurer. So I spoke to the head of Martech again, but a separate health insurer. And their quote was, AI is not a substitute for process discipline. So basically, they as a company, they were starting to think about adopting AI or AI agents. They were looking at which workflows to apply it to. And they realized, we have not standardized these processes at all. We're not even in the place where we should be handing it over to technology. So for them, AI agents or looking to adopt AI agents has actually been a catalyst for putting a lot more effort into documenting their workflows, documenting their processes, standardizing where possible, and generally just putting a lot more focus on that side of things, on the sort of how things work and how they flow. And the analogy this person used with me was looming. So, industrial revolution, obviously the textiles industry changed massively from people hand sewing and looming and creating textiles to machines doing it. And one of the things that happened in the early days of industrialization in this industry was you ended up having a lot of material sitting on the ground. So the machines were working too fast for humans to come along, pick it up, put it in packages, put it on a truck, and send it off. So it sort of talks to this idea that you can enhance how certain parts of a process work, but all the adjoining bits and where it intersects with other workflows can actually fall down. So you can speed things up, but overall you can actually slow down the end-to-end process if you're not careful and if you don't plan out how these processes should work. So I spoke to two health insurers, and they both had very similar feedback, actually. So they said, we, in our business, have a lot of fear about AI agents because of regulatory concerns. So one of them hasn't or is fixing their processes first. The other one that I spoke to, they are going ahead, but only for internal use cases. So their AI governance committee said, no chance, we are not putting anything out to customers. It has to be internally facing only. So I'm not sure, is there any regulated businesses here? Anyone from FSI or, yeah, okay. Are you guys finding the same thing, sort of risk aversion, a bit of challenge? Not as much? Yeah, okay, so you're one of the lucky ones then. And to be fair, one of the companies that I did speak to had a very big and famous data spill about 4 years ago. So they're particularly touchy, which is fine. It's the name of the business. So anyway, so I spoke to, again, the head of Martech at this health insurance company, and they could only do internal-facing use cases. And they started with a general marketing chatbot. So basically, it's there to be as like another marketer. You could ask questions to, and they would know all the answers. How do you think that went? Good? No, it went terribly. It was way too broad. It wasn't really trying to solve any use case. It was just trying to create another person, a digital person in the marketing department. So instead, they refocused and they got way more narrow with their use case. So they actually ended up going with 2 internal use cases. So one was an onboarding agent. So all it does is onboard new hires. That's it. And I guess the benefit here is it can do it and it's integrated into different systems. So it can onboard someone and give them information about recent campaign performance, how things are going. It can reference reporting. So it's like a very contextual onboarding experience. So that was the first. The second was a cohort and performance agent. So all it would do, anyone in the business could ask this agent about recent campaign performance. So how's our repurchase campaign gone for the last month? Or how did the big retail campaign we do every year, how did it go last year? Or how big is my high loyalty segment total? So that was the second use case. So they wanted to reduce the amount of time that marketers were answering questions. We all feel it, the Slack message, hey, can you just tell me? Oh, it's not that simple, it's always the answer. So that was the second one that they rolled out. So how did it go? So again, there was benefits here. So number one, onboarding efficiency. Their onboarding process used to take 4 weeks. The amount of time it took to get in the right people's diaries, get them to explain the strategy, go review campaign reporting, dig up the campaign reporting, update the deck, the intro deck. So they cut that down from 4 weeks to 1 week for new hires, which is great, big tick. The second one was internal comms efficiency. So they had a big reduction in redundant communications about cohort counts, how campaigns performed, and upcoming campaigns. What do we have scheduled? Again, another tick. But the real challenge they had was proving the ROI for internal use cases. And us as marketers, we're very good at calculating what a 1% decrease in churn means in terms of overall revenue, or if we can increase cross-sell by X, that'll mean this. For internal-facing use cases, it's very different. We're talking about efficiency, and we're talking about efficiency with people. So they did initially have a very hard time justifying the cost. They were working with a big vendor who I will leave nameless, and the cost was, pretty eye-watering. So, a lot of people looked at this and said, okay, great, we can onboard people 3 weeks faster, and some of your team don't have to answer as many Slacks. Is that worth the money? So what they learned through this process was, number one, standardization comes first. Again, if anyone knows about technology dominance theory, so this idea that a lot of people fall into this trap of letting technology dominate how you do things, when in actual fact you need to specify to technology how things need to be done. So this standardization really comes first. You need to give your AI agents every chance of success, standardize where possible, find weak points in your process and fix them. Because if you scale up a poor process, then you just scale up all the problems that come along with it. The second one is the high hurdle for regulated businesses. And I guess more than just the hurdle, it's also the culture as well. I mean, you said, it's okay. You've got obviously smart people. You're working quite closely with the legal teams and compliance. But a lot of businesses in the regulated space, at least from our interviews with brand side leaders, they are just saying no. Definitely no to customer facing. And some of them are even saying no to internal things, which is a hurdle. But both of these Martech leaders at these 2 different health insurance companies, they both said the same thing. all we have to do is demonstrate predictable, repeatable success, even if it is with an internal use case, and then we can get some runs on the board, get some wins, and actually scale it up, which is no different to any other technology, right? And then the third learning was about changing how we measure ROI. So again, marketers are very good at measuring customer impact outcomes. Measuring or numerating how much quicker we can do things, or the time saved doing certain tasks. It doesn't necessarily come naturally to a lot of marketers. So the person I interviewed for who did those two use cases that I just spoke about, they actually had to go back, get each of their team to keep a journal. So how many requests have you got per week? How long did it take you to respond to those requests from other teams? How many were about cohort counts? How many were about performance? How many were about upcoming campaigns? And then they used that to actually work out, okay, how much of these people's time did we save? And as a business, how much did that time cost us, or what was the sort of dollar sign attached to it? So I think a big learning for them was they have to think very differently and measure success very differently to how most marketers measure success. Okay, so that was number 2. Number 3, this is a cool one. So the quote is, I had to unlearn so many things. We have to think about things very differently. So I spoke to the Senior Director of Lifecycle Marketing at, in fact, actually an FSI company, so regulated as well. So it's a consumer investment platform, so you can go on, buy crypto, buy stocks, buy ETFs. And the main thing that they learned was that they had to unlearn a lot of things. So they come from this lifecycle marketing background, obviously a lot of comms planning, journey planning, thinking about how customers should go through their lifecycle journey. But their use case was actually like an AI decisioning. So they were getting agents at the individual level to try and impact customers to make their first deposit. So they have this big audience of people who have hand raised, or they've created an account, but they haven't actually put any money into the platform. So what they wanted to do, or in the past, they would set up these journeys. So if you've made an account 3 weeks later or 3 days later, we'll remind you, hey, the account is here. Do you want to log in? Do you want to put some money in? And then they'll do seasonal campaigns as well. So tax codes have just changed, or there's this break, or the stock market's doing really well. Maybe you want to put in some money. And instead, they decided to rip it all up. So they said, you know what? We are going to let AI make every single decision for our prospects, and it will just choose when to send emails, when to send push notifications. They can't do SMS because of regulations. And we will let that run, see what happens. So they really handed over the keys, and the outcomes were really positive. So they did have a sizable return on this investment. They invested in a new platform to run this. They were very happy with the return in less than a year. They completely scrapped manual calendar-based and journey-based comms planning. So they just don't do it anymore. They don't create comms calendars for their prospects. They don't create journeys. And the last one was really cool. So in the past, they would have to have a reasonable amount of staff available through Christmas and New Year's because of changes in tax codes, the sort of new year, new me investment. So a lot of people decide January 1 is the time that they start buying stocks. So in the past, they had to have people there ready and setting up campaigns, QAing, getting it all ready to get sent out. And this year, I think they had one person who was there just in case things broke down, and they didn't, so it was fine. So again, it was a really positive outcome, but the learnings and getting there was just not that simple. So the first one that they shared with me was agentic AI outcomes can be a slow burn. I think we heard this this morning with cars as well. there's a lot of feeling that, you sort of click your fingers and then suddenly you're seeing returns straight away. Just not how it works at all. It's like any form of technology. It requires sustained investment, time, money. And for this company, it took them 3 or 4 months before they started saying, you know what, I can actually see the value. This is doing what it says it should do. And part of the reason it took so long was because of how agentic AI and this new way of doing things exposed gaps in their infrastructure. And I don't just mean technical infrastructure, I also mean sort of business infrastructure as well. So one of the things they had to fix was tagging. So tagging their content, which content was appropriate for which audiences, which degree of depth of tagging did they need. And they went through it 4 times. So the first one, just their tagging they already had in place, they said did not work. It was never going to get close. And then they changed it, they made it much, much more granular, and they realized we're giving the AI way too much to think about. Let's take it up a level. And then even once they got the level right, they still needed to play around with the tagging. It just took time. It took a lot of thought, and I think blood, sweat, and tears by the sound of it as well. And then monitoring and reporting, again, depending on the scale and how many messages it's sending out, and how much of the underlying LLMs the messaging was using, obviously their usage would change, their costs would change. So they had to invest a lot more in monitoring and reporting. And also not just on the cost side, they wanted to know outcomes. Were people actually converting? Was it driving an increase in calls to a call center or the help desk? So again, this is the story of, there's these things you have to set up before you can even start to think about agentic AI. And the last one was how their control groups worked. Again, they had a control group sort of way of operating or system in their business, and they realized for this use case, it was just not going to work. It wasn't going to show them true uplift. So it was something they had to go back to the drawing board, fix, iterate, try and get to work. And the last one, so slowly, scaling up the complexity and risk. So again, this company, they were right on the money. They said high volume, medium complexity, low risk. We've heard it 1 million times. And they, after using prospects, so they started with prospects because they have no money in the platform, right? There's not really much risk. If they piss them off, they unsubscribe, it's not the end of the world. But next, so they've just rolled out a AI decisioning thing for their existing customers. So they want them to do more trading activity and increase the amount that they've deposited on the platform. So suddenly the risk factor goes way up. We're talking about customers who can pull their money. We're talking about customers who are regulated. These are investments, so the SEC is interested. So again, they sort of told this story of starting with prospects, getting some runs on the board, ironing out the kinks in a low-risk scenario, and then building up to something a bit more risky. So those were just 3 of the interviews that we've had so far, and each one is just full of insight. It's so fascinating hearing what you guys are doing with AI agents, how it's really working on the ground in brands. Obviously, the product marketing is all very, very shiny, and everything is rosy, but it is really fascinating. So I guess my 3 key takeaways here are, number 1, don't underestimate the investment or overestimate the outcomes. I think there's a lot of underestimation of how much investment and how much of preparing the ground, as that one interviewee said, goes into this. A lot of people like the idea of a small proof of concept or a quick proof of concept or a quick win. And at least from what I've seen, maybe there's companies out there that are doing that, but from what I've seen, those are very, very, very rare. They just don't come around that often. So it does require sustained investment and really, really committing to this. And then on the outcome side, again, don't overestimate how fast outcomes are going to occur. So the last company, 3 to 4 months before they even thought it was showing any signs of positivity. And yeah, and I guess don't always believe the product marketing. You know, it's not going to change your world, but it can make a big difference. The second key learning is about infrastructure. So again, as I say, not just technical infrastructure, but business infrastructure. So investing in all the things that support AI and AI agents is really make or break. If you don't have a world where you can stage your models and then sort of push to prod, then you know, that's something that you just need in place before you can even get started. If you don't have that interaction catalog, then you're sort of setting up your AI agents for failure, or you're setting it up to be hard for them. So investing in all the surrounding infrastructure first, you know, it seems to be the way that companies who are getting success are actually starting with that first. I guess the last one is your company is not that far behind. I might see show of hands. Who is investing in AI agents in their business right now? Okay, we've got a few. And who is not? Who's not touching it? Okay, I've seen some people's hands who haven't gone up for either, so maybe they're somewhere in the middle. But I guess the message is you're not that far behind. I talk to a lot of brands and they say, you know, oh, I'm getting a lot of pressure, we're doing really poorly with AI agents, we're not getting any success. And I think the message is, so are 80% of brands. You know, a lot of companies are not doing very well with it. It doesn't mean the technology is bad, it just, most of the time, it means the approach is not great. So discipline is the name of the game. So being disciplined about your tech choices, being disciplined about committing and seeing these things through and giving it the investment it needs, that's really key. And all of this always reminds me of this post by Ben Evans, so the tech analyst. You know, I'm hearing disturbing rumors that quick pilots of a brand new and very immature technology do not always produce immediate slam dunk successes. I think a lot of us come into this for right or wrong thinking, you know, we will have a slam dunk success. And the truth is always somewhere in the middle. Number one, it takes more investment than you think. And number two, it takes longer and the outcomes aren't always, yeah, slam dunks. It takes a lot of work. So I'm hoping that if you came in and you were feeling tired with the hype and a little bit overwhelmed, I'm hoping this stock image of an excited corporate lady that's what you're feeling like right now. That's almost me done. So just the last one, we put out a newsletter every single week. We publish all our research, including our AI agent research. Once it's done, we'll be publishing it through our newsletter. So sign up if you want to get more weekly insights. And then if you are using AI agents and you've got any good use cases, you think you've had a lot of good learnings, we are still doing this piece of research. So we are still interviewing brands. It's completely off the record, so I will never use your name or your brand's name. What we're trying to get is real conversations and real understanding of how it's working. So either scan the QR code and send me an email or just come and grab me. I'd love to hear about what your company's doing. But I think that's it from me. So thank you so much for your attention, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of CDP World. Thank you.